fix the bearings in here for this, I need to fix this Z-axis mounting plate onto here, and then I can mark out the exact location of this, then mount this to that plate, and then use this bearing to hold this, okay, and then adjust this all the way at this end so it holds the shaft exactly where the bearing's got to be, and just pop the holes in for the bearing. This mounting plate, which is the Z-axis mounting plate, but it is also the X-axis carriage plate as well. It is the most complex part of the whole build. So you've really got to make sure you get this one right. It's full of holes, as you can see. I'm just center marking. So yes, it's very crucial you get this one right. The whole thing, that is. Okay, the next fiddly job that I have on this increasingly complex part is to clamp the bearing blocks with the screw for the Z-axis in place. Now, the easiest method I've sort of developed, I suppose, to do this, first of all, I have these absolutely parallel. I've put two or three screws in and clamped it there, and I've checked to see if it's parallel with a vernier. Pretty damn close. So then I've got the bearing blocks then assembled to the Z-axis screw. And what I've done to ensure that this is absolutely centrally mounted, now I do it without marking it out. Because what I'm trying to do is locate the holes where to drill them. I know that there's 4mm a side, totaling 8mm of gap. So what I've done is I've got two 4mm drills, and I'm using them as gauge blocks. So I've got one here and one here. I've got this clamped up against these fairly firm, so I know that this is now running parallel with this these guide rails. So I know there's not going to be any problem at all when I've drilled these holes. So all I'm doing now is I've got a 6.5mm drill, which is just over 1/4 of an inch, and just marking the holes underneath and using these as gauges to just start to drill them, and then I'll dismantle all this and drill and thread those, and all will be well. I can put it together. So let's do that right now. Okay, so I've assembled the Z-axis plate now onto the X-axis bearing blocks, and I've also fixed the, put in place the ball screw nut here, and this is now very rigid. Okay, I've taken this over that way, so it's, you know, about 2 inches distance here, but this bearing now is firmly fixed, and that's where it has to be. So what I'm going to do now is clamp that bearing housing to the upright of the gantry. I'm going to mark the holes, drill them, tap them, and fix that bearing in place, and then do the same operation for the bearing the other end. So there's no measuring involved, and it's absolutely put in the correct position. So in actual fact, you're using the linear guide rails that you've already pre-assembled to locate where that bearing goes. Right, this probably isn't going to be the final fitment, because you know, I'm going to need to paint all these in all these brackets because they're steel. But should we say this is a pre-final? So what I want to do is show you how to put it together. Most of this will be high-speed film, but we'll get this bearing on here first, like so. This is the important one, and this has got a nut on it that screws on this thread, and this loads the bearing up, so it eliminates any backlash. It's loaded fairly easy. Now what I do, you know, be careful doing this. Although these are hardened steel, you can still mark them with jaws. So if you catch hold of it with a rag all the way up here, where it doesn't really matter, and just I think I'd probably do it a little tighter than that. Just firm. You should be able to still turn that bearing fairly freely and not feel any, or not too much drag. You'll feel a little tiny bit, alright, but very little. And on this nut here, there's a little grub screw. So you've got to do that up like that. Firm. It does it up on the thread. So you need to put that bearing on there first, because you have to put it in there like this. on this particular design anyway. So I've only put a couple of bolts in the Z-axis just to hold the rails and the screw there, just to give you some sense of what it looks like. And when you've got it this far, and it's now all tightened up, it's not squared up true. You can actually move this, you know, sort of half a degree or so. But you should give it a bit of a test. Make sure it doesn't bind up anyway. I know it's not going to. Should work something like that. Well, I didn't quite get as far as what I was hoping. You know, I was hoping to get the Z-axis plate all mounted up on there, and the spindle motor as well. But I've come across something that I have had before actually, and that is when I received this ball screw, and it happened to me on the last build too, but from a totally different supplier. They neglected to put the aluminium molded block that goes, cast block, that goes on here to connect it to, you know, to make the connection between this ball nut and the plate that's going to go on here. So I'm going to have to make one, because I suppose if I complained about it or rang them up and said, hey, you know, it's missing, they'd send me one. But you know, I'll just make one. It's going to be quicker because it's Christmas. You know, it's going to take a month to get to me. So that's the only thing I've had, you know, hiccup so far. So it's really coming together. And, you know, mechanical work, there's not too much to go, other than, you know, making this, and I'll be mounting a plate on here to make the stepper motor, same on every axis. Probably a different affair on the X and the Y. I'm probably going to build a housing. mount the steppers, and then do the electrics. So it's probably about a month away from being operational, which isn't bad really. And it's looking pretty good, and it's very sturdy. So I hope you've liked the video today. Please like and subscribe, and if you like what I'm doing in all my videos, you may consider becoming a patron, because the ad revenue from Google, YouTube is just not there anymore, and you just can't run a channel like this and do what I'm doing without support of patrons. So I really thank patrons, and so if you would like to consider becoming a patron, you would be very much appreciated, and I can do more things. Okay, so thank you for joining me. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm probably going to have about an 8 to 10 day break now, but still have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the new year. So it's bye for now.